Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Thursday, the 10th of February, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Now, it's going into day 13 of the trucker convoy in Ottawa. And the government is on one side right now, and they've basically dug their heels in, and so as the convoy has dug their heels in on the other side. But what is the big issue between the two of them? Is a disease called COVID. That's the big issue. Okay? And while they're there and they both got their heels dug in, neither side is really watching the charts on COVID, what's happening with COVID right now. Because big things are happening. Let's get in there and let's open up the charts right here and take a look at what's going on. This is the Canadian COVID chart right here. And you know what we see? Oh my gosh! We were having 41,000 cases a day, and just a few weeks ago, 41,000 a day. Well, what are we having now? Look, come down, 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 down. It's not coming down. It's falling off a cliff. Right now, we got 11,000 a day. That's only about. Oh, I can't do the math real quick, but I would say it's about 24% of what we were having. If we were having 100% at 41,000 a day, now we got 24%. So it's dropped off by like 75% in just matter of days. And it's continuing to drop like a stone dropping in the water. Well, if COVID is the big contentious issue here, while they're not watching, COVID's disappearing over there. While they're fighting this thing out. I just wanted to point that out this morning. And that's a great thing. I can't wait to see it gone. And it's going really fast. And there is something here that I'll call it a burnout, or a flame out, jet engines tend to do that, Sometimes they'll just flame out, the flame inside them, especially pulse jets. Just poof, fire goes out, and forest fires can tend to do that. They set something in a forest fire called a backfire, and it burns up the wood burns up the fuel in front of the fire, And the thing about it is that's intended to put the fire out. Well, this Omicron has acted something like a backfire, burning out all the fuel being the people who haven't had COVID. Now, practically everybody and their dog, well, you could say and their dog, because animals are catching it. I heard the other day, hamsters can pass it on to you, for crying out loud, But they can't pass it on to you if you've already had it or had it multiple times. And this is the way, in this Omicron, people, it's going through the population. Everybody's catching it. Some people are getting it twice, because it's so contagious that they can get reinfected with it again, and have it. Omicron is just going around. Everybody's catching it. And thankfully, not everybody's dying with it. Most people are getting over it, and then when they get over it, they have something called natural immunity, And the whole thing could burn itself out. Seriously, watching these charts, if this was a Bitcoin chart, they'd say it's going to zero right now. Well, I'm watching this chart on COVID, and maybe it's going to zero or close to it. It's just going to keep. I've been watching the South African charts, which are a little bit ahead of ours. UK charts, which are a little bit ahead of ours, but not quite as far ahead as South Africa, and it just continues to drop until it becomes an insignificant issue. That's where it's heading right now. It's heading into that insignificant territory. and fast. So, uh, if this is their big contentious issue, the issue might become insignificant very soon, and any sort of uh, it the whole thing could become theater, if it's not already theater. I mean, anyway, I am glad to see COVID going in the rearview mirror. Thank goodness, and this chart is really picks up my spirits to see this falling off, because this is very meaningful. That our hospitals are going to start to clear out patients, be able to clear out their ICUs and stuff. This is very meaningful, and people should be focusing their attention on this more. The fact that this is going away, and this is what can yield our lives going back to normal more than anything, is the fact that this is going away. Thank goodness. Anyway, let's get in there and take a look at the price of silver today, which is up 16 cents. Now, I was reviewing charts this morning for silver, mining production, how many ounces they get out of the ground per ton of ore. And I was amazed. I was shaking my head back and forth, and I was saying, oh my goodness. The ore production of the amount of silver they get out per ounces out of a ton of ore has dropped off so much, just in a very, very short period of time. And they're not doing very much. I'm having a brain fart, guys. Exploration. They're not doing very much exploration out there. They're not keeping up, let's put it that way. Not even close to the supply and demand ratios coming out right now, and how they're going through this ore and cleaning out the best ore out of their mines, and crushing it down, and getting the silver out of it. And then after a while, there's nothing left in those veins in the ground. That's what they call this in a mine, when they have a good grade of ore, and they call it a vein. And they follow those veins. Sometimes there'll be a big lump of the precious metals, and they call that a mother lode. They have different terms that they use. At any rate, there's no more mother lodes. Mother lodes are all gone. But now they're digging through the ore, and the really good stuff, the ore that yields a lot of silver, they've dug all that out now. Now they're into the subgrade ores and stuff, and they're getting less and less, and there's no exploration going on. But the demand for silver in the world is exploding through the roof. They want all these new initiatives, and they're going to need so many solar panels, it's going to drive you insane. They have to use silver, and the world's demand for electronics. And here, look at what we got going on with these semiconductor plants and stuff, like in Taiwan and stuff. Shortages, massive shortages. I'm going to tell you guys, don't throw away your old computer. The old days when you used to always throw away your old computer and go out and buy a new one. Remember those days? Well, you might be scavenging through the dump trying to fix your old computer pretty soon. Don't throw away your old cell phone. You might be trying to fix it. I'm telling you, this could get critical in the up and coming days. Shortages on everything. That's what we're headed toward. We're heading toward a world full of shortages. This I can't quite say post-pandemic world. I can't quite say that yet. I have to hold off on saying that just yet. But this is what I'm figuring. This is what I'm thinking, is we're moving into a post-pandemic world. We want to keep it post-pandemic. You got to clamp down on something called gain of function. Because these guys out there, I'm going to tell you what, in these laboratories and stuff around the world, they have that technology now. And they could accidentally create something, or even intentionally or accidentally create something that is a monster that is got nothing to do with COVID. Something new, something that we never even heard of before. and release and it could be 10 times worse than anything we've ever seen with COVID. I mean, this is monstrous. This, what they can do with research nowadays in the laboratory setting, and it shouldn't be allowed. I mean, because uh, we got too many vulnerabilities for our species already. We could go extinct with the amount of vulnerabilities out there. Anyway, getting on to this. This is silver. I don't know how I got sidetracked talking about that. But anyway, silver's up today, 23.47. It's getting to a price range that we haven't seen for a little while. And this is good, but it's setting floors too underneath it. I'm going to tell you about silver and gold. They have a rock solid floor underneath the price of them, and this is limitations that are set by what it costs to get them out of the ground. Where you don't have that with cryptos. Well, I shouldn't say you don't have it, but I mean these guys are mining bitcoins for like $7,000, and they can mine a bitcoin out. So their cost of production is rather low when you consider the bitcoin's worth like $45,000. I think mine it out for like 7,000. That is, but you don't have that with gold and silver. I mean, the cost of production's much higher for the amount that they're getting for the metals. Anyway, moving on to cryptos. Talking about cryptos right now. 2035 billions is 2 trillion. It's over a $2 trillion industry. It's moved back into the position where it's over a $2 trillion industry once again. And we're looking at a Bitcoin price of almost 45,000, 44,956. So it's been moving up lately. This is unimaginable to me. I think about how things were just a few years ago, and all of a sudden you got a $2 trillion industry in these cryptos? Wow. Dow Jones Industrial Average today is down 76 points, 35,691. And it's kind of unusual to see red there because we always see the Dow go up day after day after day after day. It's near all-time highs right now. What can I say except this is an awful lot of the market has moved into these big names in the market, like Tesla and stuff like that. You got a market that is unhealthy, and it's overvalued, and what we got is a Fed that's on the other side of that, and they're tenacious right now, and they want to cut. There's going to be a pivot very soon, because as for all the Fed's bravado, I think when things start to really turn down, I think they're going to be the quickest to pivot you ever seen. I don't think that bravado is going to last very long when things actually do start to turn down seriously. And I think they're already starting to price in what they see as this pivot that's coming. And this is part of the reason why it's held the markets up, is the expectations looking forward and pricing things in of what they know is going to happen. And what I've been saying is going to happen before these other guys were saying it. And I've stuck to my guns on this, and I know it's going to happen, but I'm not the only one seeing it now. There's just tons of them out there saying the Fed's going to have to make this change, this sea change of a 180-degree turn. And this is what they're looking forward to, But what does that really mean? It means that it's not going to have, what they've tried to do is not going to have any effect upon inflation hardly at all. And these inflation numbers and the CPI and things like that are so undervalued, underpinning and underscoring the real inflation out there, which is massive. It's already set in. It's already massive. And soon it's going to cause an erosion of people's confidence in the purchasing power of their fiat currencies. I think we're only about 2 years out. We're talking about protests. Just wait until people start to go hungry because they can't afford to buy a loaf of bread. Hunger is a driving force. It's a great motivator. And you got your happy protesters, who treat everybody mostly kindly, and they pat everybody on the back because they're well fed. Then you got your angry protesters who have an empty stomach. We're not there yet. We've got protests, but it's happy protesters, protesters who are much easier to deal with. Looking 2 years from now or so, something like that, probably. I'm just estimating because I don't know exactly how long this is going to take. But I do know we're going to get there because the inflation's not going to go away. And the inflation is going to hit everybody. It's a hidden tax. And it's going to get to the point where people can't feed themselves. And then you're going to have hungry protesters, extremely ravenous protesters, probably 2 years from now. Looking forward, And who created this mess? The ones who instated the Federal Reserve back in 1913, and they set up the whole world's. Nixon helped in 1971 with his Nixon shock. They set the whole world into a Ponzi scheme, and now this is a result of the end of the Ponzi scheme is going to be these ravenous protesters that are going to come probably in about a year or two down the line from now. Prepare for it, because they're not going to be the happy smiley face pat you on the back protester. They're going to be the protester that you don't want to confront, and there's going to be 10 times more of them. And how's the government going to cope with that? Well, I don't think they're going to be able to cope with it unless they feed them. And there's going to be no food available to feed them at that point in time. In fact, I've been talking about food wars coming in the future. And what we're looking at is 2 years out into the future, we're looking at a very bleak situation that it will resolve itself. The situation will resolve itself. And then that's when we're finally going to make the sea change and start moving toward a brighter future after it resolves itself. But in resolving itself, that's going to be the big reset that everybody's talking about. Want a reset? It's going to be a reset. It's going to be the end of fiat currencies forever. They're never going to come back. All of them are going to be gone. And I think this is only a couple years out. And so that money, if you do have bills in your pocket right now, dollar bills, they will be 100% worthless after this is over, after the reset. They'll never be used again. In fact, they'll just become a collector's item of an age gone by when the treasuries of the world used to control the money. And it's something that is archaic. You want to talk about archaic, the whole thing about a treasury and the king and his treasury and all that. That's come out of the Middle Ages, for crying out loud. And we're still stuck in the Middle Ages, but worse, because back then their money used to have value. It used to be gold and silver. Now all we got is these paper things. And you know how, I'll just take 1 minute to tell you guys how all this got started. They used to have somebody called a goldsmith. And he used to keep people's gold for them. And the reason why is oftentimes they keep their gold in a little leather bag, and they slide it under their bed, and the man would be wealthy because he had a little leather bag, little leather satchel full of gold underneath his bed, or they used to keep it underneath their bed. And if somebody snuck into their house and stole that, then he would be the wealthy one. The guy that was wealthy now wouldn't be wealthy. He'd be the poor one. And so obviously it was very difficult for them to keep their little satchel of gold. So these goldsmiths popped up. And the goldsmith guy, he was like, I got a big vault. I'll take your gold. I'll keep it for you. And in exchange, I'll write you this note. And on the note says, I owe you so much gold, right? And what happened is the people started to trade these notes rather than trade the real gold. They traded these paper notes, saying, "Oh, I have this gold with the goldsmith," and they use that as a means of exchange. Well, then the goldsmiths, after this got going really good and everybody was using these notes as means of exchange, the goldsmith started to create more notes than he had gold in the vault. Of course, finally, ultimately, this is what led to what's called fractional reserve banking, where they don't have the actual money on hand near as much as is the amount of it's just a fractional reserve is all they keep on hand in these banks. They don't have the money. You think they have all that money? And they put up these big vault doors and everything to make you think that they're guarding all this money. Most of these vaults are just empty. And it's just all for show, you know. They just want to show you this power, you know, and keep you all entranced in the majesty of these institutions. This is why they call them savings and trust, because they want to earn your trust. They want you to trust them with your money. But the real fact is they are all just hollow shells. They don't have the money. If everybody went to the bank and wanted their money, it ain't there. Sorry, it's just a fractional reserve. And now I don't even think they have to keep the fraction. Used to have to keep a tenth of the money. Now I don't even think they have to do that. Anyway, I'm rambling on a little bit, but suffice to say, the Dow's now down 145 points while I've been talking. But it doesn't surprise me. What did surprise me a little bit is to see the Dow come up to near record all-time highs during this little bounce that we've had, which I consider until the Fed makes the pivot, I consider that to be a dead cat bounce until the Fed makes the pivot. But you know the Fed could make this pivot overnight. And in fact, I think that's what we're going to see happen. Just no real big announcements or anything like that. Just they're going to come out one day and they've went back to quantitative easing. And they've given up all their ideas of quantitative tightening, and they've given up all their ideas of raising interest rates and all this garbage. And they've went back to their old monetary stance because everything starts to fall out of bed. I think that's what we're going to see happen, and it's just going to happen overnight, and you're going to come in one day, and the next day, and the Fed will have made their pivot, and everything will be going back up again. And boy, gosh, that's going to be nitrous oxide rocket fuel for gold and silver and kryptos. That's when we're going to start to see the real, is when all this tomfoolery is done that's been going on for months now with the Fed, and it's been suppressing the price of gold, silver, and kryptos, which really want to take off, especially gold and silver. Do you know how everything else you buy in the world's been moving up in price except for gold and silver? Anyway, let's take a look now at crude oil at 91.24. Move index 81.76. So these are kind of going along a little bit sideways. Let's take a look at bonds. Now, bonds are not going along sideways today. We see a big jump in yields. Big jump. And this is why the market's down today. This is the real reason. US 10-year at 2.01. We've cracked past 2.01. I'm going to tell you guys what. The second cut from the Fed has now been priced in, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think we're going to see too much movement higher in these yields until the next cut, until they get ready to price in the next cut. And I said they'd get away with the first cut, and I said they might get away with the second. They ain't going to get away with the third. And because yields are up now, and we're going to see with the US 10-year over 2% now, and their limitations probably around 2.25 or 2.5% on the US 10-year. It pretty much gives you the timing for this Fed pivot. And the Fed pivot is going to be all about these yields on the long end of the yield curve. This is what's going to really force them to pivot, is because they cannot afford to see this go up too quickly on the long end of the yield curve and the short end. They can't have yields go up, and the yields are going up, and they're going to have to do something about that. And this is what's going to make them pivot. Taking a look at the dollar index today at 95.31, and it's dropping like a stone right now, right this minute. It was going up this morning. Now it's dropping big time. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next episode. Bye-bye.